The backstage spat between Ian Machado Garry and Khamzat Chimaev at UFC Qatar continues to generate heated reactions, and now a prominent voice from the MMA world has weighed in with a scathing and deeply personal critique of the Irish welterweight. Darren Till, a former UFC title challenger known for his own fiery persona, unleashed a lengthy social media tirade, not questioning Garry's fighting skill, but launching a full-scale assault on his character, labeling him the fakest human on earth, and squarely blaming him for the physical confrontation with the middleweight champion. Till began his post on X by acknowledging Garry's undeniable talent in the cage, writing, "Ian Garry is such a good fighter, man." He then immediately pivoted to his core issue, stating, "But by God, is he possibly the fakest human on earth? Fake beyond all beliefs? It's so hard to like him." Till revealed a personal struggle to find a reason to support his fellow fighter, confessing, "I've literally sat in my bedroom with my own little demons in my head, telling me to force myself to like him." Delving into the specific incident with Chimaev, Till completely sided with the middleweight king, framing the shove as a justified reaction to Garry's inauthenticity. He's calling Khamzat a child. He was being fake. That whole interaction was fake. And when Ian turned, you could see he was scared, Till alleged. He then drew a parallel between himself and Chimaev, suggesting they share a low tolerance for what they perceive as disingenuous behavior. Khamzat is like me. That's why we were best mates. If you chat shit when we see you, what is Till's criticism extended beyond the single incident, pointing to Garry's history as evidence of a pattern. Even hating on Leon's performance the way he did. Garry got kicked out of that gym, as he did of others, because he's a wanker at the end of the day. This reference to Garry's departure from Team KF Martial Arts in Dublin adds a layer of historical context to Till's claims, suggesting a recurring theme of friction with training partners and coaches. His final brutal assessment was a double-barreled insult. As much as he's a good fighter and I've tried to support Ian Garry, is just a proper wanker. A fake wanker at that. While an immediate fight between Garry and Chimaev is unlikely due to their different weight classes, Till's very public denunciation highlights a significant perception problem for Garry. From Till's perspective, the issue isn't just about a single backstage push. It's about a fundamental lack of authenticity that makes Garry, despite his elite skills, so unlikable to a segment of the fighting community. This public airing of grievances ensures that the narrative around Ian Machado Garry will continue to be as much about his personality as it is about his performances inside the octagon. In a triumphant return that silenced any doubts about his place among the elite, Kyoji Horiguchi didn't just win a fight at UFC Qatar, he announced the full flowering of a veteran's confidence, a serene and powerful self-assurance that comes from a lifetime spent mastering his craft. After nearly a decade away from the UFC octagon, the 35-year-old Japanese star delivered a spectacular third-round submission victory over Tagir Ulanbekov, a performance that was less about proving he still belonged and more about demonstrating he has evolved into an even more complete and formidable fighter than the one who challenged for the title a decade ago. In the aftermath of his emphatic finish, a beaming Horiguchi struggled to contain his joy, yet his words revealed a deep, unshakable calm at his core. "I'm really happy, you know? I can't explain that kind of happy, but I'm really happy," he said, the genuine emotion shining through. This happiness, however, is not the fleeting excitement of a single win. It is the satisfaction of a plan coming together, of a gamble, leaving his champion status and other promotions to return to the UFC, paying off in the most definitive way possible. What is most striking about Horiguchi's current mindset is the absence of the noise that often surrounds high-stakes fights. He revealed a monk-like discipline in his lifestyle, where the line between training camp and daily life has blurred into a consistent state of readiness. "I'm also being in the gym, so I'm not big different in the camp or outside of camp. So normal," he explained. This consistency is the bedrock of his confidence, forging a mental state where fear and nerves have been replaced by pure, unadulterated focus.
I have a lot of confidence. I don't fear. Nerves, I don't have. I'm just focused on the belt, that's all," Horiguchi stated. This simple declaration is a powerful mission statement. It reveals a fighter who is no longer distracted by the periphery of the sport. The jitters of a comeback, the pressure of expectations, the threat of a tough opponent, none of it penetrates the single-minded goal of capturing the UFC Flyweight Championship that eluded him years ago. His final comment, "I'm always practicing everywhere. If I have a chance, yeah, I can grapple. If UFC offered me some fight, I can do it. I'm a fighter," underscores his readiness and versatility. He is not a striker who grapples. He is a complete martial artist, prepared for any scenario and any challenge the UFC places before him. Kyoji Horiguchi has returned to the UFC not as a nostalgic attraction, but as a refined, confident, and dangerously focused contender, operating with the quiet certainty of a man who knows exactly who he is and what he's capable of achieving.
In a revelation that connects the calculated calm of the poker table to the controlled chaos of the octagon, UFC strawweight champion Mackenzie Dern has credited the game of poker with playing a pivotal role in her long-awaited descent to the top of the mixed martial arts world. After a career often marked by inconsistency, where spectacular victories were sometimes followed by frustrating setbacks, Dern finally captured UFC gold by defeating Virna Jandiroba. According to the champion, a significant part of her evolution from a talented but emotionally driven grappler to a disciplined champion can be traced back to the mental discipline she honed away from the gym, sitting at the green felt. Dern pinpointed the start of her championship run to when she began playing poker seriously about a year and a half ago. She explained that the game directly addressed the greatest obstacle in her fighting career: her emotions. "I've always been really emotional when I fight. I get punched and I want to punch them 10 times back, and the strategy goes out the window," Dern admitted. This tendency to brawl when provoked often led her away from her world-class jiu-jitsu and into firefights where strategy was secondary to instinct. Poker, a game where emotional control is the bedrock of success, became her training ground for a new mentality. "Poker really helped me control my emotions, take my time, think, and read people, which is exactly what we do in fighting," she stated. This translation of skills is remarkably direct. The patience required to wait for the right hand mirrors the patience needed to set up a submission. The ability to read an opponent's tells in poker is analogous to anticipating a fighter's habits and reactions during a bout. The discipline to fold a decent hand because the situation isn't perfect is the same discipline required to disengage from a wild exchange and reset. This newfound mental fortitude has been evident in her recent performances, a streak that includes wins over Lupita Godinez, Amanda Ribas, and the title-winning victory against Jandiroba. She has appeared more composed, more strategic, and less likely to be drawn into a purely emotional dogfight. For Mackenzie Dern, poker was not a distraction. It was a form of cognitive cross-training that provided the final crucial piece of the puzzle. By learning to master her emotions in a high-stakes game of chance and strategy, she was able to channel the same control under the bright lights of the UFC, transforming her from a perennial contender into a champion who now uses her head as effectively as her hands.
A seismic shift appears to have racked the UFC's lightweight division, as veteran contender Justin Gaethje has reportedly announced his retirement from mixed martial arts. This stunning development comes directly on the heels of a very public war of words regarding the title picture, where Gaethje had taken a firm stance that he would retire if not granted the next championship opportunity against Ilia Topuria. The news, reported by the outlet MMA Central, brings a sudden and dramatic end to the career of one of the sport's most beloved and thrilling action fighters. It also validates the concerns he had been expressing in recent interviews, where he argued that the UFC, quote, owed him a title shot after his contributions, including his legendary BMF title defense against Max Holloway, and a short-notice fight against Rafael Fiziev. This retirement immediately reshapes the entire landscape at 155 pounds and serves as a monumental backdrop to the criticism he was receiving just days ago. His primary critic, Paddy Pimblett, had vehemently disagreed with Gaethje's position, stating, "No one's owed nothing, you fight for it," and arguing that his own recent win over Michael Chandler was more deserving. Now, with Gaethje exiting the stage unexpectedly, the path to the title has been cleared of a major obstacle. Pimblett's argument that the storyline is already built for his fight with Topuria now carries significantly more weight. The other top contender, Arman Tsarukyan, is also in the mix, but Gaethje's retirement removes a huge legacy name from the equation. Gaethje's retirement marks the end of an era. The highlight will be remembered as one of the most consistently exciting fighters in UFC history, a former interim champion and BMF title holder whose all-action style made him a fan favorite. His decision to walk away, seemingly triggered by his belief that his championship window had been unfairly closed, is a powerful and sobering statement on the difficult politics and fleeting nature of opportunity at the sport's highest level. For Pimblett, Tsarukyan, and Topuria, the race for the lightweight crown just became a two-man battle, with the shadow of Gaethje's departure looming large over the entire division.
BMF title holder Max Holloway believes he holds a unique and powerful card in the high-stakes game of securing a spot on the historic 2026 UFC White House event. With the spectacle scheduled for June 14, 2026, on the South Lawn to celebrate the nation's 250th anniversary, fighters from across the roster have jockeyed for position. But Blessed, hailing from Hawaii, sees his nationality and his symbolic belt as the key factors that make his participation almost inevitable. During a conversation with the Korean Zombie, Holloway laid out a compelling case for his inclusion. There is no American champion. The only American champion there is the BMF title holder. So am I going to be on the card? I like my odds of being on it, Holloway stated with characteristic confidence. He doubled down on this logic, emphasizing the odds of me being in there is probably high. Like I said, there is no American as a UFC champion, but me with the BMF title. This argument is difficult to refute. On a card meant to showcase American combat sports on a global stage, the presence of the nation's most popular and exciting active title holder seems not just logical, but essential. Holloway's plan to make this a reality involves a busy and ambitious schedule. Currently recovering from a hand injury sustained in his epic victory over Dustin Poirier earlier this year, the former featherweight king is targeting a swift return to action. First things first, just get through this injury and hopefully I can get a fight early in the year around March-April and see if I can do a turnaround in June for the White House card, he revealed. This tight timeline underscores his desire to stay active and build momentum heading into the summer blockbuster. As for the opponent who could define his path to the White House lawn, Holloway's sights are set on a grudge match with a familiar foe. He has repeatedly called for a rematch with lightweight champion Ilia Topuria, the only man to have knocked him out in his storied career. A chance to avenge that loss and potentially become a two-division champion would provide a storybook narrative for the historic event. For Max Holloway, the path is clear. Heal up, secure a big win in the spring, and then march onto the most unique stage in sports history as the standard-bearer for American MMA, ready to settle the score and cement his legacy all in one night.
In the aftermath of his historic welterweight title victory, Islam Makhachev isn't getting swept up in the cacophony of call-outs and contender debates. Instead, the newly crowned two-division champion has returned to Dagestan and imposed his own quiet but firm timeline on the UFC, demonstrating the unique leverage of a pound-for-pound king who knows his value. While the MMA world continues to dissect his win and the emerging threats at 170 pounds, Makhachev has calmly placed a 2-week clock on Dana White's desk, expecting the promotion to swiftly identify his next challenger from a crowded and competitive field. "The clock is ticking," Makhachev told local media, a statement that shifts the pressure from the champion to the matchmakers. "We have at least 3 or 4 contenders now. Soon, probably in about 2 weeks, it will be clear who the next challenger will be." This isn't the plea of an anxious fighter. It's the directive of a dominant champion who has assessed the landscape and is now demanding clarity so he can begin his preparation. His cold, pragmatic analysis of the top contenders leaves no room for sentimentality or hype. Regarding Ian Machado Garry's call-out after his win at UFC Qatar, Makhachev was unmoved. "He didn't surprise me yesterday," the champion stated. "If he surprised the UFC, then maybe he will be next." This response reframes the criteria for a title shot. It's not just about winning, but about delivering a performance so emphatic that the promotion cannot look away. When addressing the undefeated boogeyman of the division, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Makhachev pointed to the stark reality of inactivity. He hasn't fought for over a year. A contender can't sit out for a year with injuries and then come fight for the belt. Yet, in a display of his confidence, he left the door ajar, adding, "If he recovers and the UFC decides he's next, why not?" This overarching theme of delegation is key. Makhachev is not hand-picking an easy fight. He is tasking the UFC with making a difficult decision from a pool of worthy options, all within his 2-week window. His posture is that of a final boss, secure in his abilities, waiting for the next challenger to be presented to him. This commanding position is further validated by the ultimate seal of approval from a legend. Georges St. Pierre, who witnessed Makhachev's freaking brilliant performance at UFC 322 from cageside, has become his most prominent defender, actively dismantling the boring narrative pushed by some critics. "I don't think he even took a punch. People who say, 'Oh, it was a decision,' they don't know the art of fighting," St. Pierre stated, anointing Makhachev as the true pound-for-pound best. This endorsement from an all-time great reinforces that Makhachev's quiet dominance is a form of high art, granting him the authority to set the terms for his own reign. The ball is now in the court of the UFC, and the champion is watching the clock.
The simmering rivalry between Ilia Topuria and Tsarukyan has exploded into a full-blown social media war, transforming a potential sporting contest into a deeply personal grudge match filled with accusations of cowardice and posturing. Just one day after Tsarukyan's dominant submission victory over Dan Hooker at UFC Qatar, where he immediately called for a title shot against the lightweight champion, Topuria responded not with a simple acknowledgement, but with a scathing and deeply personal attack aimed at dismantling his challenger's tough guy image. Taking to Twitter, Topuria didn't just accept the challenge, he launched a character assault, mocking Tsarukyan's demeanor during their past in-person encounters. "Arman, every time we see each other in person, you freeze up like a scared duck with no idea what to do," Topuria wrote, immediately setting a confrontational tone. He asserted his dominance, claiming, "You know I handle you however I want," while dismissing the call-out as a mere formality, stating, "I fight whoever the UFC chooses." The most incendiary part of his post was a specific allegation meant to humiliate. "And remember, I slapped you and you just laughed. Then you go around acting like a gangster." He concluded by putting Tsarukyan in his place, labeling him, "Just a few levels below me, kid." Tsarukyan, never one to back down from a verbal spar, fired back with a sharp and detailed rebuttal that directly challenged Topuria's version of events. He ridiculed the champion's claim of a physical slight, writing, "Bro, you touched my neck like we were taking a family photo, and now you're calling it a slap online?"
he turned the focus onto Topuria's mentality, stating, "The clip is clear, your insecurities even clearer." Positioning himself as the true man of action, Tsarukyan retorted, "I don't need to act tough for Twitter. My work is inside the cage." He ended his response with a menacing promise. "If you want to know what a real slap feels like, I'll be happy to educate you. See you soon, El Pato," co-opting Topuria's duck insult and turning it into a new nickname. This intensely personal exchange stands in stark contrast to Tsarukyan's more professional comments at the post-fight press conference, where he claimed, "To be honest, we have nothing personal between us. This is all media, this is all hype." Topuria's venomous response ensures that any potential fight between them is now drenched in genuine animosity. The champion has framed the rivalry not as a competitive matchup, but as a hierarchical dispute where he views Tsarukyan as an inferior who is acting above his station. By questioning his courage and recounting an alleged physical humiliation, Topuria has successfully raised the stakes, transforming a potential title fight into a must-see event fueled by pride, disrespect, and the urgent need for one man to prove the other a liar.